In this video, I'm going to show you exactly how your trauma from social circles in grade school, like if you didn't feel like you fit in, if you felt left out, if you felt bullied, and how your relationship with this group and the grade school bully can still be impacting you to this very day in terms of not finding the friend group you want or feeling like you don't fit even when you have friends, and even how it can stop you from making money. And then I'm going to show you exactly the steps that you need to take to go back in time and unravel some of these patterns so that you can resolve it for good. My name is Adam. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Before we get started, I just want to let you know on Sunday, August 25th, that's this Sunday at 10 a.m. Pacific time, I'm going to be doing a very big somatic release energy clearing call on this exact topic. So we'll get deeper into what some of these patterns, links, traumas, issues are. We'll remove them, and then we'll align with a much more balanced, healthy version of social connection. Okay, let's get started. So this topic came up recently while I was processing, some of my own stuff. I'm always constantly processing. And I was brought back to this particular kid that had a very powerful impact on me as a child. Now, this kid we could call the grade school bully, because that's kind of how he was. This kid was my first experience with sort of like a social leader, I guess you would say. In preschool and kindergarten, I had a number of different friends. I had never really found or been around someone that was so dominant that they just kind of controlled everyone else. And that's how this kid was. He had a reputation even in kindergarten for like going after the other kids. I don't know if like even with a bat maybe. I think he went after one of my other friends with a bat. That was the story I heard. And I met him in like the second grade. And he was very magnetic in a certain way. He was very charismatic. And he was just the kind of kid that like the other guys would hang around and kind of look to. He also was the kid that, second, third, fourth, fifth grade, when, we started getting into members of the opposite sex, a lot of the girls liked. And so I like had this on-off relationship with him all the way up through the beginning of high school. And I remember like being in elementary school, and there was this, I'll never forget this. There was another kid who was a little, weight doesn't matter at all, okay? It doesn't matter how you look, but he was pudgier in fifth grade. He was bigger, the kind of kid that grew up and kind of got real buff and strong and like good looking in high school. He was like on the high school football team, the high school baseball team, beat the shit out of some kid in some fight. But in fifth grade, he was kind of nerdy and pudgy. And this other kid, one time on the schoolyard, was like hopping around this kid in a circle, just making fun of him, just going piggy, piggy, oink, oink, piggy, piggy, oink, oink. And that's just who this kid was, okay? And I was a very sensitive, shy, empathic child who didn't even know what empathic was. And I sort of like kind of became friends with him. And I would stand around in these social circles with him, always feeling like the frickin' wallflower. I never felt like I really fit in with this group, but it was sort of the cool group. And so what happened was I began to develop associations with a lot of different things. And this is one of the points that I want to make, the associations that we make with our sort of child mind. One of those associations that I recently had to unravel that I didn't even know was still in my subconscious was kind of like the old school alpha male like archetype, where we perceive like the leader to be a dick, the leader to be an asshole. So my perspective of a leader, because he was kind of a leader in a way, he was a shadow version of a leader, what was everything that he was. So it was the girls liking you, the guys looking up to you, being an asshole, making fun of people, picking on people, which I never did and I didn't like to do. But what it did for me was it created this sort of resistance to being a leader myself, because I've always been afraid, like, I don't want to be like that. I don't have to be like that. But my point is, this is what our child mind does. Like, most of our healing involves like extricating conflation. And this is a great example, like a good example of how we conflate things. We will just blanketly associate everything with one archetype. And a lot of the healing involves like picking pieces out. It's like being a leader would be having people look up to you, but it doesn't have to be being an asshole or picking on people or being dominant in a like arrogant, I'm better than you sort of way. So I had to like go back and unravel all this, and I'll show you more specifically how I did this in a minute. But what happened with this kid was, I would go through phases where I would kind of hang out with him and this group of kids. And I remember I got up into ninth grade, and I had kind of been on off with him. And in ninth grade, it was a new school, it was high school, and I didn't really know who to hang out with. So I went and I started hanging out with him again. And I would just find myself like kind of just on the outskirts of this group, listening to them all talk, listening to them make jokes, listening to them kind of razz each other. They'd razz me. I like could never really stand up for myself because I was physically not really strong or healthy, and I couldn't fight. And I was so dissociated and shy and empathic and introverted that I couldn't ever think of anything to say as a comeback, because I could hardly even understand or process what was thrown at me. And there's two ways that you individuate or stand up for yourself generally. One is physical, the other is verbal, and I couldn't do either. So if someone said something to me, I'd just sit there and freeze and then feel like a total idiot, and then they'd kind of laugh at me because I had nothing to say to come back with. And it got to the point where I was like, I wasn't really included. They'd all hang out like outside of school. They'd never invite me. And so me and another friend that I had kind of left because he had the same problem with this kid. And we sort of formed our own group. We went and we hung out with someone that he was friends with from earlier in childhood and another friend of that kid's. And then I made another best friend, and the group kind of expanded. But this is something that I want to point out that's really important. Two things happened here, or didn't happen. I never stood up for myself, really. So I never fully processed extricating from this kid or this group. And I also never saw my move as an empowering move fully. I saw it as like, I don't really fit in with the cooler people, so I have to sort of settle. And I would invite anyone watching this to really go back into your past and find any times where you did this socially, because it links to everything. Like, for example, this move, or not this move, but me not fully processing or owning my empowerment in this move, could be one of the reasons why I struggled with money for most of my life. Because our perception, if you want to get into like Joe Dispenza and Bruce Lipton, kind of how our perceptions and our beliefs, right, activate our DNA, activate various gene expressions. That sort of perception of I don't fit in with this social group that I think is better than me very well could have, and I think it did, activate me resonating with like lower level class system patterns in my lineage. So it could literally turn on my DNA of being like, the broke Jew, because that's, I come from a line of Jews that, came to America and didn't do very well, a lot of them. They were in kind of poverty and like struggled and toil and always felt like left out. It's a very Jewish thing to feel like no one wants you around and you kind of have to hide. And so because of my perception as a child of this situation, all of that got activated. Whereas had I been able to, in a healthy way, really stand up for myself and own my own power and see my separation as like a move up instead of like down because I didn't fit in, everything could have changed, right? But it didn't happen in that moment because I didn't know this stuff then, and it's natural to be like, oh, I don't fit in with the cool people, and so I'm not good enough. Like, we all do that. So what do you do now to change this? And I'm going to show you kind of what I did. And the point of this is everybody has these examples. We all feel like we don't fit in socially sometimes. We all feel not good enough. We all feel like we weren't cool enough, or we weren't cool with the cool kids, even when we are the cool kids, So what I had to do is go back into these memories. I would start kind of journaling about how I felt in the situation. I kind of called forth this kid in my mind, and then I looked at like the different beliefs that I developed, like I'm not good enough, or I'm not cool, or I don't fit with the cool group, or any variation of that. And I just started kind of writing that stuff out and allowing myself to feel it, finding in my body where I felt it, kind of looking at the behaviors that have occurred throughout the rest of my life as a result of feeling like this was just an identity I had, as like not cool enough, or not smart enough, or not quick enough because I was so shy. And so then I started to feel like in my nervous system, all of the times we were standing in a social circle and they would say something and there was something I wanted to say, or they would say something to me and I couldn't think of anything to say back. I had to like access. So there's fight, flight, and freeze. Those are the responses our nervous systems have: fight, flight, freeze, and fawn. And there are plenty of times in our past where we didn't get to complete one of these patterns. We didn't get to run away. Happens a lot as children. We can't get away. We didn't get to fight back. And then sometimes we just freeze. And if we freeze, there will be stuck energy in our body. And you'll feel it. You'll just, you won't know what to say. So I had to go back and imagine myself in this circle and imagine them saying something to me and just feeling my body shut down and completely freeze, because I couldn't say anything back. I didn't know how to defend myself. And the body will literally connect this to death, because if you go back far enough in time, if you got ostracized from the social group and thrown out on your own in the wild, you would die. So you have to feel like this. I felt this visceral terror of like, I don't know what to say, I don't know what to say, I don't know what to say. And I just gave myself some time to let it just kind of process out, just by feeling the freeze. And sometimes what you can do is you can like just push your legs or your hands on something. You'll just kind of notice like your body won't want to move. So you have to do something to just very simply move it and intend to like push the frozen energy out. And then the next thing I did, because I'm a lot more talkative and clear than I was when I was like a teenager, is I had to go back and find things that I wanted to say back and say them. They weren't all terribly nice. Some of them were, maybe a little bit brutal, or a little bit mean, but it was just a way for me to stand up for myself. A lot of them were more humorous, and then kind of see the response that you want in your head, in your imagination, which is either them laughing or them like backing off or whatever it is that you didn't get. Because what that does is it takes that piece of energy, that part of yourself from that moment in time that, trust me, is still very stuck in your subconscious and in your body. It's an imprint and an identity that you're walking around with to this day, until you go back in time and you find it and you alter it and you complete it. You're bringing those patterns and those stuck perceptions into completion and resolution, and then you release that belief about yourself, you release the energy, and then you can move on and be who you are now in this moment. Every moment is a new moment, but we're so stuck in the past because we were never taught how to process our emotions or our trauma, that the now moment is usually just a reverberation of our past. And what I also had to do is I had to take a moment and like flat out tell him, like, you're a dick. I don't want to hang out with you anymore. Because I never did that. I just sort of snuck away. And so there was a part of me that never really felt like I got closure or took any ownership around my decision. So that this may be something that you need to do too. Just flat out telling people to their face in your mind in the past what you thought of them and declaring that this is over and you're leaving. Because there's a lot of power in that move. And your body will feel that. Your body will actually feel like it starts to come into wholeness. It releases old energy and it kind of levels up. And then the last thing I did for this video that I'll cover is just kind of have appreciation for what this kid taught me. Because there was karma here too. Like maybe there were some lifetimes where I wasn't very nice and I was getting to feel what it felt like to be treated that way. Or I also got to feel what it felt like to be that person instead of always kind of being the more stronger, dominant one, which has also been like, I have been very strong in many lifetimes. So like there's a lesson in learning like what it feels like more to be the underdog. So I have compassion for people in that space and then can like stand up for them or whatever. Like we're always learning all these different variations of lessons as souls. And just kind of ask. You can just ask what the lesson is and it will come to you, kind of whatever ideas you get that feel right, that's probably it. And then always, if you just kind of bless the person, have gratitude for what they taught you. One of them was to like go my own way, know that I can walk alone and still love myself, know that like I cannot be part of the cool group. And that's actually what forges leaders, because oftentimes the people who weren't the coolest in high school end up making huge contributions to society and become cool later, like whatever it is. He helped in many different ways without intending to. So that's the last part that you can do is look for the lessons, find gratitude for what you learned, and you can ask to have any karma cleared if you want to just ask or just intend to release any past life karma related to whatever the different angles of this lesson are. So I hope this helped someone out there or a lot of people. Thank you so much for watching. I always appreciate everybody's support. Please feel free to comment. Let me know if you have any questions, revelations, stories. And I have a free book list if you want to download it. It's 15 books that help me heal immensely. That's in the description below. And other than that, thank you so much.